Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with this. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. I want you to let that land because some of the biggest emotional wounds we carry don't come from strangers. They come from people we love, people we gave too many chances. When people we made excuses for, people who little by little made us question our own worth. And today that stops because there are 5 behaviors that you should never tolerate from anyone, no exceptions. Not from your partner, not from your parents, not from your boss, not even from yourself. Why? Why? Because your peace, your self-worth, your future depend on what you allow into your life, and it's time to raise the bar. Let's dive into the 5. Number 1, disrespect, no matter how small it seems. You know that feeling in your gut when someone says something that feels like a slap, but they laugh it off as a joke, or they interrupt you every time you talk like your words don't matter. That's not just rudeness. That's a red flag waving in your face. You don't need to scream. Let's see, you don't need to cause a scene. But you do need to stop letting it slide. Because when you ignore disrespect, you tell people it's okay to keep treating you that way. And it chips away at your self-esteem. One sarcastic comment at a time. One dismissive shrug at a time. Here's your new rule. If it feels like disrespect, it is. Trust yourself. Number 2, emotional manipulation. If someone uses guilt, shame, fear, or silence to control your behavior, that is not love. That is manipulation. Period. Maybe they constantly play the victim, or twist your words, or make you feel like you're always the problem, or worse, like you're too sensitive when you finally speak up. No, that's not on you. That's someone trying to flip the script because they don't want to take responsibility. And let me be clear, you are not responsible for managing other people's emotions at the expense of your own. Your job is to stay honest, stay clear, and stay out of relationships where power games replace real connection. Number 3, repeated boundary violation. It starts with a favor you didn't want to do, then a call at 1 a.m. when you clearly said you needed rest. Then it's them showing up late, or showing up uninvited, or showing up with expectations that you're supposed to drop your whole world for theirs. When someone keeps crossing your boundaries after you've clearly stated them, you have a choice to make. Not them, you. Because people who respect you will adjust. People who don't will gaslight, guilt, or ghost you. Let them. You don't need to convince anyone to treat you with care. Set the boundary, enforce the boundary. And if they can't handle that, they never truly respected you in the first place. Number 4, neglecting your growth. Let me ask you something. Who are you becoming in the presence of this person? Are you shrinking to stay in the room? Are you hiding your dreams to avoid making them uncomfortable? If the people in your life can't clap for your growth, if they mock your ambition or constantly remind you of who you used to be, they're not supporting you. They're limiting you. And you can't build a future with someone who's invested in keeping you stuck. Your dreams matter. And the people who love you will remind you of that, not resent you for it. And finally, number 5, lack of accountability. Look, everyone makes mistakes. We're human. But if someone hurts you emotionally, verbally, mentally, and then refuses to take ownership, that is not a slip-up. That is a character trait. We do not make space for people who always deflect, deny, or dump their baggage on you. You are not their therapist. You are not their excuse. You are not their excuse. You are allowed to expect growth. You are allowed to say, I deserve better than this. Because guess what? You do. Let me say something loud for the people in the back. You are not too sensitive. You are not asking for too much. You are not wrong for expecting respect, honesty, boundaries, encouragement, and accountability. You're just done settling for less. So what do you do from here? You get clear. You get firm. You start listening to that gut feeling you've been pushing down for far too long. Because the people who truly deserve to be in your life, they won't leave when you speak up. They'll lean in. They'll meet you in your truth. They'll hear you're a no and honor it. They'll grow with you, not guilt trip you. And the ones who can't handle that, let them go. You are no longer available for behaviors that cost you your peace, your clarity, or your self-respect. You are not here to babysit dysfunction. You are here to rise. So stop making exceptions for behavior that breaks you down. You're not being mean. You're being honest. And honesty, my friends, is the most powerful form of self-respect you'll ever practice. When someone disrespects you, whether it's obvious or subtle, they are revealing how little they value you in that moment. It might not look like outright insults. In fact, that's what makes it so dangerous. It might look like being talked over in a meeting, laughed at for expressing your opinion, ignored when you say a no, or being the butt of every joke. These are not small things. They're not harmless. These are signals, and your nervous system catches them even before your conscious brain does. Brain. That tightness in your chest, that heaviness in your stomach, that lingering sense of unease after a conversation, it's not just anxiety. It's your body whispering, this person is not safe. And every time you ignore those whispers, you're betraying yourself. You start to second guess your reactions. Or you think maybe I'm just being too sensitive, or they didn't mean it that way, or worse, if I call it out, I'll make things awkward. But here's the truth. What you tolerate becomes your standard. And when you let even small forms of disrespect slide, you're setting the stage for bigger ones. People learn what they can get away with by what you let them do once. Disrespect doesn't always wear a villain's face. It often hides behind charm, behind a smile, behind his "I was just joking," behind or taking it the wrong way. And suddenly, you're walking on eggshells, afraid to speak up, afraid to upset them because they've convinced you that you're the problem. But you're not. You're just someone who's been conditioned to put other people's comfort above your own dignity. You want to know how to start changing that? Start treating disrespect like a fire alarm. Don't wait until the flames are burning down your confidence. Don't wait until it escalates to shouting, betrayal, or breakdown. Address it when it's still a spark. When someone interrupts you, say, "Hold on, I wasn't finished." When someone makes a backhanded comment, say, "That didn't sit well with me." When someone rolls their eyes or mocks your ideas, name it, out loud, without apology. Because if you don't, that moment of disrespect turns into a pattern, and that pattern becomes a dynamic. And before you know it, you're in a relationship, romantic, professional, or even familial, where your voice is an afterthought. Here's the most brutal truth. Most people aren't trying to be malicious. They're just used to getting away with it. And the moment you draw a line, you're forcing them to look at their own behavior. That's why they push back. That's why they might call you a difficult, or a too much or overly emotional. Because now you've changed the rules of the game. Now you've said, my self-respect is more important than your comfort. And that is terrifying to people who relied on your silence. But here's what's even more terrifying. Living your whole life as a watered-down version of yourself just to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. When you raise your standards, yes, some people will leave. But they're the ones who are only benefiting from your lack of boundaries. Let them go. Make space for people who don't just respect you when it's convenient, but who truly see you, and still choose to honor your presence in their life. And don't think for a second that standing up for yourself makes you aggressive. That's another lie. We've been sold, especially women. That being clear is being harsh. That being assertive is being mean. No. Setting boundaries and calling out disrespect is not aggression. It's emotional maturity. You're allowed to correct someone without yelling. You're allowed to leave the room if someone crosses a line. You're allowed to say, this isn't okay, even if it ruins the vibe, especially if it ruins the vibe. This isn't just about one rude comment or one bad interaction. This is about the culture you build around your life. You are the CEO of your boundaries. You decide what the standard is. And if you let disrespect stay in the room, it will grow roots. So start plucking it out the moment you see it. It's going to feel uncomfortable at first. It might even feel unnatural if you've spent most of your life trying to keep the peace. But listen to me. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of respect. And respect doesn't just come because you're kind or likable or accommodating. Respect comes when you require it. You don't need to be perfect to deserve it. You don't need to have the best words or the best timing or the best tone. You just need to be consistent. Show people how to treat you by refusing to stay silent in the face of disrespect. You can be kind and firm. You can be compassionate and clear. You can be warm and fierce. And when you start showing up like that, fully in your power, no longer making excuses for poor behavior, you're going to lose some people. But you're also going to find your people, the ones who respect you, who value you, who lift you. And most importantly, you're going to find yourself again, the real you. The one who stopped tolerating crumbs when they knew they deserved the feast. Emotional manipulation is one of the most toxic and invisible forces that can exist in a relationship. It doesn't scream at you. It doesn't show up with flashing red lights. No, emotional manipulation is subtle. It creeps in like fog, and before you know it, you can't see clearly. You don't know what's real anymore. You start to question your own memory, your own instincts, your own sanity. That's how manipulation works. It twists the truth just enough to make you believe you're the one who's always in the wrong. You say no, and they make you feel guilty for having boundaries. Or, sure, you express how something made you feel, and they say, you're too sensitive. You ask for something you need, and they act like you're selfish or needy. You call them out on something hurtful, and they turn it around and say, oh wow, I can't do anything right, can I? Do you see the pattern? The spotlight keeps getting turned back on you. You're always the problem. You're always the one who's too much, too emotional, too difficult. That's not love. That's emotional manipulation. And the worst part, most manipulators don't even realize they're doing it. They've learned to control people by weaponizing guilt, fear, and obligation. Maybe they learned it growing up. Maybe it's how they survived. But that doesn't make it your responsibility to carry the weight of their unhealed behavior. You're not their therapist. You're not their punching bag. You're not here to constantly prove your love by sacrificing your peace. Manipulation can sound like care. It can look like concern. It can even feel like love, especially if you've been conditioned to associate chaos with affection. I'm just trying to protect you can really mean I want to control your decisions. I need you can really mean you can't leave me even when I mistreat you. That's not protection. That's possession. That's fear dressed up as affection. In the moment you start to wake up to it, the manipulator doubles down. They'll play the victim. They'll cry. They'll say, I can't believe you think I would hurt you. They'll act confused, like your pain is completely foreign to them. That's not confusion. That's denial. That's deflection. Deflection. Because the second they acknowledge the harm, they also have to change. And most people don't want to change. They want you to change. They want you to stay in the role that makes their life easier, even if it slowly destroys you in the process. Bess, here's what you need to know. You are allowed to name emotional manipulation when it's happening, even if it's coming from someone you love, even if it's coming from someone who loves you. Love is not a free pass for unhealthy behavior. Love is not an excuse for guilt tripping. Love is not making you feel small so they can feel big. Love is not needing you to be less so they can be more comfortable. Love is support. Love is honesty. Love is two people growing, together and separately, with mutual respect. So what do you do when you realize someone's manipulating you? Realize someone's manipulating you? First, you stop explaining yourself over and over. Manipulators thrive on confusion. They want you caught in a loop of defending yourself, so you never pause long enough to recognize the game. You don't owe anyone a 20-minute justification for having a boundary. Second, you get grounded in your truth. Answer, write it down. Talk it out with someone you trust. Journal what happened, because manipulation messes with your memory. It makes you question what you know. Document it. Validate yourself. Trust your reality. Third, use clear, direct communication. Not aggressive, not emotional, calm and factual. Calm and factual. When you say X, it makes me feel Y. I'm not okay with that. And watch their reaction. That tells you everything. If they apologize and take accountability, that's growth. If they twist it back on you, that's a pattern. Here's the hardest truth. You cannot heal in the same environment that broke you. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, you're teaching your nervous system that your needs don't matter, that your feelings are second tier, that your comfort is negotiable. And that becomes the belief system that runs your life. You stay quiet in meetings. You avoid hard conversations. You ignore your own red flags in relationships because you think being liked is more important than being respected. But let me tell you something that will rattle you. Being liked is not the same as being valued. You don't earn love by being less of yourself to the. You don't gain respect by erasing your own boundaries. You don't find peace by being passive. Peace is not found in silence. It's found in truth. It's found in the moment you say, no, I can't help with that right now. In the moment you say, it doesn't work for me. In the moment you say, I need a break. And in the moment you stop apologizing for having needs. Does it feel scary? Absolutely. People might push back. They might call you selfish. They might say you've changed. And you know what? Good. You have. You have. Because you're finally realizing that you were never put on this earth to be everyone's emotional sponge. You are not responsible for keeping everyone else comfortable at your own expense. That's not your job. That's not your identity. That's not your destiny. The truth is, the people who genuinely care about you will not be threatened by your boundaries. They will not love you less when you start saying no. If anything, they will love you more. Because now they get to know the real you, not the version of you that performs, pleases, and pretends. Let me say this loud and clear. Nice is not the same as good. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can be loving and still say no. You can be generous and still protect your peace. You don't need to justify you're a no with a long explanation. You don't need to feel guilty for stepping back. You don't need to over-explain or overcompensate. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to stop being nice and start being real. Because when you stop being nice just to keep the peace, you start living in alignment. You start speaking up when it matters. You start trusting your gut. You start showing up for yourself, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. And that version of you, that's the one who doesn't settle for crumbs. That's the one who says, I matter too. That's the one who stops dying a little inside every time they betray their own truth, just to keep others comfortable. You've spent enough time trying to be everything to everyone. It's time to be honest with yourself. The real you is not a doormat, not a fixer, not a people pleaser. The real you is powerful, bold, capable of fierce love and fierce truth. And the moment you stop performing and start being real, some people might leave. But the ones who stay, they'll be the ones who truly see you, who truly hear you, who truly respect you. And more importantly, you'll finally respect yourself. You know what's wild? Most of us spend so much energy trying to be accepted by people who don't even genuinely value us. We bend, we shrink, we hustle for approval, all because we're terrified of one thing, rejection. And rejection, let's be honest, feels awful. It stings. It triggers every old wound about not being enough, not being lovable, not being wanted. So what do? We preempt it. We people please. We go silent. We avoid conflict. We abandon our truth before anyone else has the chance to abandon us. But let me tell you something that most people won't. When you start standing in your truth, when you finally speak up, when you set boundaries, when you stop performing, you will lose people, period. It's not a possibility. It's a guarantee. But that's not a sign that something's wrong. It's a sign that something's right. The people who only loved you when you were convenient, agreeable, and available for their needs. They won't know what to do with you once you start prioritizing your own. And that's okay. It's not your job to hold on to every relationship like your life depends on it. It's not your job to convince someone of your worth. And it's definitely not your job to tolerate being misunderstood in order to be accepted. You are not here to be digestible. You are not here to be everyone's favorite. Gibbon, you are here to be real. And realness is disruptive. Realness makes people uncomfortable. Some will accuse you of changing, and they're right. You are changing. You're evolving. You're choosing alignment over approval. And that is one of the most courageous things you can ever do. It's not easy. Let's not pretend it is. You'll have nights where you question yourself. You'll wonder if you overreacted, if you should have just kept your mouth shut, if it was worth losing them. And I want you to remember this. Every time you lose someone by being honest, you gain yourself. You reclaim your voice. You protect your energy. You start breathing again. There is freedom on the other side of loss. Freedom to say what you mean. Freedom to stop apologizing for your standards. Freedom to create relationships that are rooted in mutual respect, not performance. Because here's the truth. Not everyone deserves access to you. Your time, your energy, your love, those are sacred. And when you stop handing them out like samples in a grocery store, you start attracting people who are actually meant for you. But that can only happen once you stop fearing the fallout. The fallout is real. People will be disappointed. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're too much or too cold or not who you used to be. And they're right. You're not who you used to be. You're someone who's done being emotionally exhausted, someone who's done carrying the weight of one-sided relationship, someone who's done bending just to keep other people standing tall. You have to be willing to lose the wrong people to make space for the right ones. The right people won't punish you for having boundaries. They won't need you to shrink so they can shine. They won't call you selfish when you say, I can't do that right now. They'll respect it. They'll honor it. Because healthy people are not threatened by healthy behavior. Let that sink in. Healthy people are not threatened by healthy behavior. So the question is, what are you afraid of losing? Whew. Are you afraid of disappointing someone who wouldn't hesitate to disappoint you? Are you afraid of being alone, even though the version of you that bends to please everyone is already lonely as hell? Here's the truth no one talks about. Sometimes the loneliest place in the world is in a room full of people who don't really see you, who love the mask, who love the version of you that plays nice, stays small, and never rocks the boat. That's not belonging. That's a performance. And your soul is tired of performing. You weren't born to be palatable. You weren't born to be molded into someone else's expectations. You were born to live your truth. Loudly, unapologetically. And if that truth costs you a few people along the way, then that's the price of freedom. Because the moment you stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable is the moment your life begins to feel like yours again. It takes guts. It takes grief. It takes grief. It takes letting go of the fantasy that you can keep everyone happy. You can't. And you were never meant to. You were meant to be whole, not liked. You were meant to be real, not perfect. You were meant to walk into rooms with your head high, knowing that the people who get you are your people, and the ones who don't, let them go with love. But still, let them go. Every goodbye that honors your truth is a step toward the life you actually want. A life where your peace isn't up for negotiation. A life where your boundaries are respected. A life where your authenticity is not just tolerated, it's celebrated. So yes, speak up. Say what needs to be said. Walk away when you need to. Draw the line. And if it costs you someone, let it. Because losing people is painful, but losing yourself is a tragedy. You wake up every day with a mental checklist already running in your head. Who do I need to respond to? What does that person expect from me? What if they're upset? How can I fix it before it becomes uncomfortable? You're already 10 steps ahead, managing, anticipating, adjusting. You haven't even had your coffee yet, and you're already sprinting through a mental obstacle course of other people's needs. And guess what? None of that energy is going toward what you actually want. That's what chronic people-pleasing does. It robs you of your own direction. You spend so much time trying to avoid conflict, disappointment, or disapproval that your own desires become background noise. You don't even know what you truly want anymore because your default setting is what will make everyone else happy. You've outsourced your sense of purpose to the opinions of others. It's sneaky, too. You tell yourself you're being thoughtful, kind, a team player. And maybe you are. But if your kindness is rooted in fear of rejection, fear of guilt, fear of not being seen as a good, then it's not kindness. It's self-protection dressed up as virtue. And that's costing you. It's costing you. It's costing you time. You spend hours in conversations you didn't want to be in, taking on favors you never had the capacity for. You say yes to projects you hate, to invitations you dread, to obligations that drain you. And why? Because saying no feels dangerous, because someone might think you're rude, or lazy, or not a team player. But here's the thing, saying yes to what you don't want is always a no to yourself, always. You only have so much time in this life, and every yes that's rooted in fear is a minute you'll never get back. It's also costing you energy. Emotional labor is real. When you're constantly scanning the room, checking people's tones, wondering if someone's upset, adjusting your words to be a softer or a nicer or a less direct, that's exhausting. You are running emotional marathons every day. And you wonder why. You're so tired. Because people-pleasing doesn't end when the interaction ends. You replay conversations in your head. You wonder, I say too much? Was that the wrong tone? Should I send a follow-up text? You spiral, you overanalyze, and you keep giving. Giving energy, giving time, giving parts of yourself that were never meant to be handed out so freely. And here's the deepest cut. It's costing you authenticity. People-pleasing creates a version of you that's acceptable to others, but unrecognizable to yourself. You smile when you're angry. You nod when you disagree. You agree to things that go against your values, and you do it all in the name of being easy to get along with. But there's nothing easy about abandoning yourself. You start to feel disconnected, numb. You lose the sound of your own voice under the noise of everyone else's expectations. You stop trusting your instincts. You second guess everything. You overthink every decision because you're not actually making choices from your own truth. You're making them based on how other people might react. And let me tell you, that's no way to live. Because the longer you live like that, the further you drift from your own power. You forget what it feels like to be bold, to be direct, to speak a hard truth and not feel the need to follow it with an apology, to say no without guilt, to disappoint someone and still sleep peacefully at night. That's the price of real freedom, being okay with not being liked all the time. I know that's uncomfortable. For some of you, the idea of someone being upset with you is like acid in your veins. You feel it viscerally. But guess what? People being uncomfortable with your boundaries is their work, not yours. You can be kind and firm, compassionate and clear, loving and direct. You're not responsible for managing other people's emotions at the expense of your own. And here's what happens when you stop living for other people's approval. You get to live your actual life. You get to rediscover your own voice. You start making decisions from a place of power, not fear. You say no when you mean it. You show up where you want to be, not where you're guilted into being. You stop apologizing for being honest. And do you know what's really amazing? The more you live from that place of truth, the more you attract the people who are meant for you. The ones who don't need you to shrink, soften, or shapeshift to fit into their comfort zone. The ones who value your no as much as your yes. The ones who respect you more for being real than for being nice. That's what happens when you stop negotiating with your worth. Because your worth isn't based on how easy you are to tolerate. It's based on how fully you live as yourself. Every time you make a decision from your own clarity, not someone else's expectation, you build self-respect. And that self-respect is magnetic. It changes everything. You stop feeling like a doormat and start walking like the damn foundation. So ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stopped living for permission? What would I do if I wasn't afraid of someone's reaction? What would happen if I finally chose me? That version of you, the one who doesn't ask for validation, who doesn't shrink, who doesn't break her back to keep everyone else comfortable, that version is in you right now. She's been buried under layers of niceness and fear and guilt. But she's ready to rise. She's ready to live. Let her.